In fact, we had an opportunity to interview the chief of staff for the governor and heard something we thought was pretty remarkable and good, that under this mayor and the governor, they're forming a bond or a partnership that hasn't existed with a lot of mayors and governors in the past. So we think a new era is about to be entered. People are speaking the same language. They care much about how to go forward, finding the right projects. Many partners, including AARP. Obviously, your council totally gets it and knows how to pull in the other partners. DTS staff has had a lot of past training, building good streets, and they're ready to go forward to try new things. And so I think you can see first on the walk that we did with the mayor. Is that the walk with the mayor? No, this was in our neighborhood here, wasn't it? Remind me. Okay. So we're looking for how to take new tools and apply them. These are in Manhattan. Move the traffic and create the right parkways and opportunities and to go forward. By the way, Macaulay, at this point, all we can really figure out is really getting in, and this was one of your recommendations, getting in the bike lanes. There's enough width to do that, and this is basically how it would occur. Your curb extensions are cut just a little short in order to let the bike lanes clear intersections. Add in distinctive bike parking. But with all this said, I really wanted to plant the ideas, the seeds, to say we think the timing is here. And your neighborhood is going to be one of the most important. It's one of only 3 selected for these demonstration projects, but we really want to gain the traction. Make sure we are taking all the right steps. And so I'd like to spend the rest of this evening with you to turn on the lights and then take notes. What did we get right? What other things would you like us to make sure goes into the report, and how to report back to your council and the Department of Transportation Services in a way that they can make your project a great success. So that's my presentation, and I'll stick by it. Okay. So now we'll record the ideas. And we got a microphone, so if you could speak into the microphone, it just makes it a little easier for us up here. Okay, who's first? Anyone?
I wanted to mention a certain context. Number one, we have many visitors together with inhabitants here. Second, vis-a-vis California and Hawaii, the signals may be different. And then thirdly, a lot of the signs are not luminescent. So upon disappearance of stars or the moon, many signs are no longer legible.
Aha, and we are seeing the signs, the traffic navigation signs.
The painted signs.
The painted signs.
Yes.
And a lot of them are old worn, I noticed that. Yeah. It's very important to have good navigation, especially with as many outsiders, and people are really wanting to figure out are they, especially when you have one-way streets. You could miss the street you want and then have to go way around to come back. All good points. I will say that what our nation tries to do is to follow uniform vehicle code or manual and uniform traffic control devices so that everybody, no matter where they're from, sees and interprets and makes the correct decision. But these are all important things to get onto the list.
And moreover, human beings relate to vision,
Yes.
sight, as well as sound,
Yes.
as well as movement.
Yes.
So these 3 senses at certain places are to be utilized because many elderly citizens tend to look straight only. And in a way, that's the safest. instead of left, right. Moreover, many lights are quite dim.
The overhead lights, the lamps.
Many sections of the streets in Honolulu.
Okay, yes.
And so, dimness and the movement of the elderly citizens are subjected to tremendous jeopardy at all times. So, we need to capture the context in which improvements are made.
Yes. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay. Who's next? Yeah. Diane?
I really like the notion of where you have the bike lane next to the sidewalk, so it looks like an extension of the sidewalk. My concern is around implementation, and if we are looking at, let's say, a private person who's doing an improvement to a portion of a block, what is the city's responsibility or government's responsibility to do the remainder of a block? Because then you end up with this zigzag and no consistency. So.
Yeah. The first projects we do, as the big demonstration project, will be limited to one big corner. But we've already identified that by putting in the additional treatments, for example, a bike lane, we're already addressing the awareness of the motorists well before they get to the intersection. And that's why in my photomorph I wanted to show the greening, the vertical height, and things like that. But you're absolutely correct. When we do transformations of streets, we like to do an entire block, if not even more. But we have to take the small steps before we jump into block-long treatments or 2 or 3 or 4 block treatments. So this will be the starting point, but it's certainly the model of the future is to do entire sections and do them to where people just change the behavior completely as they go through that section. Very, very good point. Yes, let's get the microphone to you so everybody can hear.
Yeah, I live on the corner of Pialani and University. I walked up here, Dance walked up here. But my major problem, not good with mics, I'm sorry. My major problem is on the Hawai promenade, you get arrested after 10 o'clock at night for going, if you're biking or walking, because the park is closed. And I've been told, I have been put off of the Hawai promenade by police saying that I had to show ID and get a ticket to walk through, or I had to walk around, which put me on that little area that's that whole little, the sidewalks like this, and the drunks are coming out of Waikiki right at you, where it's, there needs to be a city council statement to the police saying don't arrest the people who are using the promenade that goes through the park. The park may be closed, but the promenade isn't. That is still part.
Yes. Thank you. Good input. And your city council's here tonight.
And I have other issues along the promenade, but it's not the right area.
Okay.
I did need that.
Well, thank you for making that available to us.
To begin with, I'm not in the Moili'ili community. We heard about this meeting at our neighborhood board here in Makiki, and listening to what you're saying, I want to cry because I wish someone would give to us in Makiki the kind of attention that they are giving in Moili'ili. I'll give you for instance. Thank you. I was walking on Punahou Street, and I'm in the crosswalk. I stepped to my right to make way for a more elderly person than I'm in my 70s. I got hit by a woman on a bicycle who swore at me and kept going. I got to the other side of the street. 3 kids came at me on bicycles. Whoa, get out of the way! I had no place to go. We provide for cyclists. What do we do so that someday maybe people will care enough about Makiki the way they care about Moili'ili, so that we can get some attention too. I know you're addressing 3 specific areas, and I appreciate that. But I believe that Makiki is one of the fastest growing high-density districts in Honolulu today. And if we don't address this, we're going to have a bigger problem than that's just that. I'll give you another for instance. On Wilder Avenue, there was a time when the buses would have to pass the traffic signal and then stop. In the before this administration, they changed that. So buses can stop before the traffic light. Now what happens is, cars cannot wait, or if the light is green, they want to go around. You hit people in crosswalks, etc., etc., etc. I called the DOT, and what they did, they sent a person to come and sit across the street and make an assessment, after which time I was told, according to our assessment, this is in compliance with the way it should be. We have to keep it this way because this is the way it's supposed to be. I don't see that, not when I'm the one that runs out, puts blankets over people, calls 911. The last moped rider died. I am sick and tired of hearing noise and running outside and getting there to see bloody people lying on the street. And I feel so helpless. I don't know what to do because apparently we're not high on priority list. No. So,
Well, thank you for your compassion, and again, we've got the right ears to be able to hear you tonight. In time, I'm certainly hopeful, and I think all people are, that all neighborhoods will get full support for making walking, bicycling, living in a neighborhood a great place. I will say that the concept of whether you have near side or far side bus drop-off is fairly complex, and I've done some analysis myself, but it would be good to take a look and remind us of the intersection again.
this is Wilder and Makiki.
Wilder and Makiki. Okay.
Yeah, I'm really tired of putting blankets over people and saying, stand back, everybody, stand back.
I understand. Okay. Others, please.
Hello.
Oh.
I had a couple of questions for you.
Please.
First, wondering if you could talk really briefly on how you determine lane requirements versus traffic volume on streets. And then secondly, if other states have started to incorporate the functions of complete street traffic facilitators in their driver education programs.
Sure. I'm sorry, I missed a word. Comparison between traffic volumes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so the lane requirements, or like the number of
lane
lanes that a
requirements.
street would need versus the traffic that it.
Yeah. Traffic studies identify for us how many lanes you need to adequately move traffic. In the past, we have tended to build more lanes than necessary in some locations. What we're now able to assess is you've got some conditions where you don't need that many lanes. Now, any future work will require a full engineering analysis, but on quick observation, there are many locations where you have more lanes than necessary. Those studies would be done, and levels of service need to be maintained at a reasonable level. Otherwise, we get complaints that we just don't want to deal with. But the safety of pedestrians, the livability of a neighborhood is now on at least an equal par with whether or not someone's going to have a 1 minute delay or a 2 minute delay at a location. Okay? Is that fine? Okay. And, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Yamato, and I have one specific place, which is on Date Street, and there's actually a bike lane, a shared bike lane there, and it goes over a bridge,
Okay.
and at which point the bike lane just stops. So there's a lot of places in Hawaii where the bike lane just stops all of a sudden, and then the bicyclist has to either ride on the sidewalk or go onto the regular road. And I think that creates a lot of confusion for a lot of bicyclists, and it can also be a point where there could be a lot of crashes. And so that's my specific point. And then generally, I think one is that we have to get a state bicycle coordinator, where we don't have one at this moment. So I think that's really important since it is federally mandated. And it would be a great place for people who are concerned about accidents or something to voice their opinion and to be able to talk to someone about their concerns. So.
Great, very, very helpful comments, and I have no clue why you don't have a state bicycle coordinator, because they are required by federal mandate, and no, Chad, you've been working hard on that. Yeah, we'll get through to the right people in time. Those are both great comments, and by the way, Chris, on that location, are you familiar with the continuity of the system?
Yeah, we actually had a project a long time ago, trying to build a bridge across there, and it was a funding issue. Yeah, it's a historic bridge, yeah, we did look at it, we went through the planning process, but we never did.
Okay, but let's further identify that with this report going forward. Sure. And, oh, I'm sorry.
This is just kind of in general. So as a bicyclist that rides like all over the island, one of the big jokes we have in Honolulu is after they pave a street, how fast are they going to like tear it up with a new thing?
Utility or whatever.
So I'm wondering what kind of controls there are for subcontractors that come in and have to do electrical or street, where they tear up the roads and then repave it back. Those seems to be the really dangerous places for us riding bicycles.
In Florida, when I worked in Florida DOT, we have what was referred to as the Utilities Coordinating Committee, and we would not let someone come back within a year or two and tear up our streets. We make sure everything was coordinated. Anyone who dealt with any utility had to do it before the repair is made. Is that being done in Honolulu? Is there a coordinating?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Yes, it is being done.
It is? By who?
But DPS can answer that.
Who can answer that question?
Well, there,
Oh, Mark.
there's
Oh, okay.
yeah, there's a utilities coordinating committee that we have, and there is no hard and fast rule right now, but certainly all of the different utilities get together and discuss when improvements need to be made. And I know that Honolulu has a reputation for having that situation where roads are torn up, but we're working on better coordination of all of those things. But you know, there's so many things that need to be done to these streets, and it's a hard, difficult task. So.
Okay. So we're certainly aware of the problem, and we will try to fix it. And let's hear from you again.
Some of the pictorial representations are quite appetizing, like depicting eating places outside the building. So within the context of coordination, I understand Department of Health, they have to allow eating outside the rental premises together with sanitation.
Yes, and this is just one of many things that we don't know why eating outdoors was ever banned. That's the way all people ate at one time. I mean, seriously. So we lost our senses in this country on many things. And we're just now beginning to realize people do like to eat outside. And it's a healthy thing to do for socializing, for building for neighborhoods. So I want to say the Department of Health is on a learning curve too, and probably easier to get these concepts across if we write them into our reports, right? Yeah. Do you know, is it hard to get a permit for outdoor eating? Heidi? Okay.
It's mainly our zoning code.
It's a zoning code, okay. Yeah, there are many things we, again, as a nation, wrote into code. We don't know why we ever did it, but now we're trying to figure out how we change it to make it work. Make it work again, yeah. Over here. Oh, I'm sorry. Over here, yes.
Hi everybody, my name is Alex Brunner. I'm with the BYK project, and I was very gratified by many of our recommendations making it into your recommendations, so I appreciate the vote of confidence. And I just wanted to add that I think it is very important that we move as quickly as possible towards having the fully protected lanes that in terms of interim solutions, I think they're great if they can help us reimagine the street, but being stuck between that car door zone and also moving traffic is not a good space to be. And fortunately, because we've done so many of these projects, people have begun to accept that's what bicycle infrastructure is supposed to look like. So I don't want it to be to that point where people say, oh, they already have a bicycle lane, they can ride in the car door zone, why are we doing this cycle track? If we can, I'd like to move directly to the cycle track. It's also much better for pedestrians because it creates an additional buffer between them and moving traffic. So I think it's good for everyone. And of course it gets the cyclists off the better, think of it this way, the better cycle track, the better cycling infrastructure we do, the more cyclists will willingly move off the sidewalk, and I think it's better for everyone. I'll tell you a quick story. While putting up things for the BYK project, I nearly got beaten by a cyclist myself. So cyclists walk, drivers walk, we all walk, and cyclists need their own space. Just one quick announcement on the 13th. At 5:30 p.m., the mayor is holding a forum about Thomas Square, and it's a little bit outside our area, but there's a chance to put a multi-use path connecting Hotel and Young Street. It's a priority 1 project in the bike plan, and I would be really gratified if many of you can make it come at 5:30 p.m. at the Art Museum over by Thomas Square to advocate for a multi-use path for people who walk and bicycle to the park and through the park. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Alex. And I want to piggyback on what you just said and point out that what we need, what your city council needs, your mayor needs, the Department of Transportation Services, and all the other agencies, is people from the neighborhood who come together and make sure that you get things going and give ground cover to your elected officials, to your staff. I think everybody knows what we mean when we say ground cover. You don't win a war if you don't have good ground cover. And you don't win even a battle in a neighborhood until enough people are willing to work together, be patient and persistent, and make it all come together. So important words. Thank you. And over to you.
The stuff that you showed us in your presentation was very, very impressive. But I think you could say that it was virtually all structural hardware stuff. And as that goes in, it's easy to predict that there's going to be some pushback, particularly from motorists saying, we're losing our parking, we're losing our lanes. And the software part, education and enforcement, I assume has to be part of the picture, and I'm wondering what happens there.
That was, by the way, your number 2 item, I believe, on the list. That we will put a lot of recommendations into the report on how do you educate, how do you inform, so that you get that strong consensus, so it's not a interest group going against another interest group. And I think it's also time to get uniform messages out throughout all of Honolulu that the times have changed, that we're going to focus on people first. We will accommodate automobiles in every way that is appropriate, but we will now put people first.
Well, that's interesting because, King Street, 5 lanes, during peak traffic hours, it's gridlock.
Sure.
Beartown is the same way. So taking away just 1 lane sounds, very minor, but you've got 5 lanes and you've got solid traffic. How is that going to work? And I'm not saying that, your pictures and the depictions were impressive. They're a lovely ideal. But how do we stop that much traffic or move that much traffic?
Yeah.
With less than
very important to point out that you have some very, very sharp traffic engineers in your city. They will not allow traffic to fail. That said, the number of lanes you have has a diminishing return. The difference between 5 lanes and 4 lanes, you're only getting a small added boost, and it doesn't help you at all mid-block. It's only at the intersections where you move traffic. So we pay close attention to how to design the intersection to keep moving the traffic, and now you can take lanes away from those locations that aren't problematic. University, you're going to have to pay a lot of attention to. There are a couple of others you're going to have to pay a lot of attention to, and you still are not going to move more traffic than you do today at a couple of key intersections. But the other intersection, fair game. You've overbuilt for things you don't need to overbuild for, and now you can accommodate all the cars and people at the same time. And it's important that that message comes from inside the neighborhood. Don't leave that up to DTS or a council member to explain that. But I can prove to you the science is rock solid on that item. Yeah. We've overbuilt. Yeah.
My concerns are about enforcement again too. There's one tiny little bit, a block of Young Street that has.
Can you give her another microphone? We can't hear you.
Okay, is that better? No.
Here, we'll give you this one. This one's got a deep voice and everything. I'll build into it.
Okay. I'm concerned about enforcement too. There's one little tiny block on Young Street that has bike lanes. And typically I ride through there daily. It almost always has vans outside Goodwill letting things off, and there's a car repair shop that has cars parked right next to it. Across the street is Kaiser Permanente, and the day before yesterday I photographed a van sitting right next to the urgent care facility as well as a taxi in front of it. Now I'm told by the police I'm supposed to ride in those lanes, but there's no enforcement on the lanes whatsoever.
Everybody know what those blocks are? So we can go-
Oh yeah, everybody knows. It's one block out of a 1.7 mile area. The other problem is garbage cans. And the area that we're looking at is pretty commercial, really more than residential, and you're not going to be seeing what I see every day when I commute to and from work. We work on even Coloniana Ole, garbage cans sitting out there waiting to be picked up, and the people don't care about whether you're bicycling in that area or not. So I really think that enforcement and evaluation, especially on these tracks, when you've got them right next to the sidewalks, I'm concerned because even now I've got segways, I'm competing with segways sometimes in the street, as well as people who are skateboarding. So I'm not convinced that it's not going to be a free-for-all once you get an area that's out of traffic. So I think there needs to be more evaluation of how this is actually going to work.
Good. Paying attention to the details, getting everything right, and we'll definitely focus on that.
Some great possibilities, and I think many of us are really hopeful about implementing your recommendation. I was wondering if you could talk about what happens to safety in a community if you get more people who bike and more people who walk. Does safety, does it become more dangerous? Does it become more safe? And how do you do that, like she said, while still moving similar amount of people through?
Good. Thanks for asking that question. We have studied city after city after city that went from very low walking and very low bicycling to moderate to then high levels of walking and bicycling. And every time you transform to high numbers of people walking and bicycling, safety not just only improves, it improves greatly. And it not only improves for walking and bicycling, it improves for motorists. Turns out that by not seeing enough people walking and bicycling, motorists don't form that signature that any human factors specialist knows how important that is. But the more time they see people walking and bicycling, they're more cautious around people walking and bicycling, and as drivers, their safety improves as well. So very important. The more we want to promote all safety in Honolulu, the more we want to promote walking and bicycling to make it an easy and natural choice.
Can you still move high numbers of
Yes, you can move. You can move high numbers of cars through with higher numbers of pedestrians and bicycles. We've proven that in city after city after city, that very high volumes of motoring occurs simultaneously with high volumes of walking and bicycling. We can do that in select sites, and we can do that scientifically in cities of all size, all scale, and size. So that's hard knowledge today. It wasn't 20 years ago, but now we know that you can move a lot of cars and a lot of pedestrians and a lot of bicycles. But the real payout is not as many people driving. That you're not growing your traffic as much. And here's a very important point. The demographics of our country Our youth, our X and Y, millennial generations, would prefer not to drive as much as their parents did. They are ready for a change, and so all you're really doing is building the infrastructure for the people that now are going to demand it. And same with the boomers. I'm now 69. I sold my last car 3 years ago. I'm proud of that, and I live a much simpler life as a result. But I think it's important we take both ends of the spectrum, our boomers and our children, design for them, and then everyone in between gets covered very, very well. Matt?
Thank you for addressing the major thoroughfares. My concern is about within the neighborhood itself. I live down on Citron Street, and one thing I think is pretty ludicrous is that we have marked crosswalks that go into dirt. There's no defined sidewalks, and the sidewalks are kind of funny because we have one that goes the entire way around Lunalilo School. But the school children, when they leave Washington and Lunalilo and they cross certain sidewalks, they end up in somebody's yard. And we have people that tell them, get out of my yard. So where do they have to go? In the street. So I see massive kids stay in the crosswalk, but once they get to the dirt area, they go into the street because there's no place else to go. Is something being addressed for sidewalks in our neighborhoods? Because it's a very important problem.
It is a very important problem, and what I will say, and see if, Chris, you probably know whether there's a pedestrian bicycle master plan for all of Honolulu. I know there is at the state level, but the city has also got a pedestrian and bicycle master plan.
Bicycle, not pedestrian.
Not pedestrian?
We don't have a bicycle master plan.
I'm sorry, you have
We have a bicycle master plan and not a pedestrian.
not a pedestrian master plan?
The state is working on it.
Okay, well, there is the need for Honolulu to have a pedestrian master plan. Now, one of the things you get with a pedestrian master plan are priority zones. You want your sidewalks to be completed outward from schools, important transit stops, important medical centers. And now you can justify to neighbors why you're putting this sidewalk in and why it's not an option, that we have to watch out for our children and make them safe. So easy enough to spot where they're not built, where they're needed, but it's very important to work through the priority listing and come up with that. And that's very important that you do have a citywide pedestrian master plan. That helps create that priority. And over here.
I think that many people agree with me that child education is very important. And I feel comfortable biking here because I've been biking all my life. And I can feel the fear of people here. If you're the whole entire childhood, you're dropped off by your parents, picked up by your parents, and driving everywhere. I can hear the fear of start biking. So I think that the one thing missing in Honolulu is a place to learn to bike. Like Kakiolani Park is a big park, but there's no place to learn to bike for kids. So I think Thomas Park, is a good place to make such place. Thomas Square. Yeah. So families can gather and kids can practice biking.
Wonderful idea, and it looks like you've already got someone ready to work with you on that. Thank you so much. And who's next?
Thank you for coming down. I'm Natalie Wasa, bike mom, also known as our president of Cyclone Hawaii. I wanted to address a couple of points here that were raised. First of all, regarding the garbage cans. Several years ago, we worked on the bicycle safety resolution, and one of the items in that resolution was to ask the city to be more conscientious of where they place the garbage bins when they put them back, and also to educate the residents on where they put them when they put them out. And that is a very serious concern on some of the places, on some of the roads. And Robin, I would suggest you just contact the city regarding that and have a contact person for you. Second, regarding the schools, we have the Safe Routes to School federal funding. We still have, I think, about $5 million left federal funding, and the state has a fund that is being added to now currently. And then the last thing I wanted to let everybody know is that in Kaka'ako, we're actually doing a demonstration project next week, Sunday, Mother's Day. And we tried to get you, Alan was working with you, Alan's been helping us out. We have a lot of different people helping us, and DTS, Mark Garrity, Mike Formby have been very wonderful trying to help us put this together. But what we're doing is actually trying to be very complete with this project, and we have trees, street furniture, parklets, bike lanes, bulb outs, traffic circles. Kamehameha Schools has repainted the facades down there. And so if you want to see what a complete street can look like in Honolulu, I invite you to come down there tomorrow. The Red Hot Ladies will be down there escorting the families. We are closing 1.5 miles of the roadway down there for the ciclovia. So this is a huge thing, and it's just, I think, a really wonderful opportunity for people to see how it can all come together. So we have so many different elements that are going to be in place.
Fantastic. And I'm,
It's Mother's Day, Sunday on Cook Street down in Kaka'ako. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
and very important that events like these come to become popular. And a city I can share with you, Montreal, Canada, years ago started a annual bike day, and they're in the tens of thousands now. But they also do one just for children, where for a whole weekend, for the day that they do, 5,000, 10,000 children ride, and it builds their ability to do well with bikes and things like that. But the parents come and cheer the children on and so on. These are the things that are going to make the difference culturally in how many people find walking, biking comfortable and pleasurable in Honolulu. Thank you.
All right, speaking as a resident tonight. I grew up in Hawaii, but I lived in New York City for 7 years. And they built a cycle track on my street. And